So the new Nvidia GPUs have some hidden surprises. Now, I'm talking primarily about the 4060 Ti with only 8 gigabytes of VRAM, but this may apply to a lot of the GPUs that have come out and will come out by Nvidia. You may not really know exactly that this is true. Did you know that the 4060 Ti, as opposed to most other GPUs that are 16x, only runs at 8x. Now, there were other really bad GPUs in the past, like the 6500 XT from AMD that ran at 4x, but it does make a difference, even though the 4090, of course, does not even saturate the PCIe Generation 4 16x, for example, as the most powerful GPU. It has been shown that a GPU like the 4060 Ti, if you're running it on an older system and it's PCIe Generation 3, you may actually see a bit of a difference. It's not going to be a massive frame drop, but you may see as much as like a 5% difference or something like that, as opposed to running it on a newer system with PCIe Generation 4. That's a little bit of a hidden surprise that many people may not know. And I guess to make matters worse, a lot of people who would buy the 4060 Ti, there's a greater chance that you're going to be running a system that's a little bit older. If you were going to buy a 4090, you can assume that buyer maybe already upgraded his motherboard and CPU, but a 4060 Ti buyer, it's possible they're on a PCIe Generation 3, and you're going to be getting a few frames per second less than this exact same GPU if it were on a PCIe Generation 4. So that shows you that 8x is really not that big of a deal, but there is a difference. And when you're paying these type of prices, I think it's important to know about the things that are surely lacking. Something else that actually really surprised me in actually playing games with the 4060 Ti. This is things that you likely won't even see in a benchmark. Let me give you guys an example. I was playing Hogwarts at 1440p, and I had mostly everything on, like ray tracing and everything like that, on the 4060 Ti. Now, I've played with these exact same settings on a more powerful Nvidia GPU, like the 4090 with 24 gigabytes of VRAM. I was surprised that the RTX 4060 Ti was actually, playable with those similar settings. Of course, it wasn't anywhere near the 4090, but the frame rates were pretty smooth. The performance was pretty good until I stopped looking at the FPS number and I took a look at the actual game. With the same settings, this game did not look the same as it did on the 4090, exact same settings. What happens here is another hidden surprise. The RTX 4060 Ti, because it has only 8 gigabytes of VRAM, is not going to even load all of the textures that a higher VRAM GPU will load. So you're never going to know what you're missing if you're playing on the 4060 Ti. That's why some of the performance seemed okay, because the game looked like it was on like PlayStation 2 or something like that. When you really look at the details, it's not loading the same textures as something with more VRAM. Everything looks more simplified. It looks more cartoony. It really does look like a PlayStation 2 game. So that's one major element. You may think you're getting good performance, but if you really loaded all of the texture and all of the little goodies that a 4090 with the exact same settings, I'm not even talking about like medium settings versus ultra settings or something like that. Gamers Nexus brought this up as well in a different game. That's something a lot of people don't know. You would think that GPUs load exactly the same thing and the settings are what make the difference, right? Like if you're going to play at 1440p, you can do it on ultra with a 4090, but on a 4060 Ti, you may have to put it on like medium or low or something like that. But sometimes it just so happens that you can put it on the same ultra settings and the frame rates may actually be playable, but you're not loading the same textures. And somebody who hasn't seen the game on a higher VRAM GPU may not really notice the difference. They may just think, oh, maybe the game just doesn't really look as great as people are saying. So these are two things to keep in mind. It shows you that benchmarking GPUs, it's very difficult. You can't just trust numbers on a graph. You have to actually sometimes visually see it because there are differences that won't show up on the graph. You have to know the technical details of what's going on, how the game is actually working with the GPU, and every game is different. Every system is different. Let's say a PCIe Generation 3 system is going to be different than PCIe Generation 4. It's not a huge difference, but when you're talking about a GPU that's already way too close in performance to like a 3060 Ti, those little differences start to add up, and it's something that, Nvidia is not going to tell you. And it's something that unless you kind of dig a little deeper and see videos like this, or maybe research it a little bit more, you're not going to know what's going on either. Most casual gamers and most gamers that just buy it to game, it's something that you wouldn't really know unless somebody tells you about it or you notice it testing a bunch of GPUs, which will be, of course, less likely for casual gamers. So definitely something to make a note of. While we like finding good surprises, like let's say if it was a 4090, you see how good it can load everything. It's like the maximum you can do. Sometimes you have to look the other way and see what exactly is missing that is not comparable to the other GPUs on the market. And this is just further proof that bad hardware specs, like, very low VRAM, it should be this day and age, at least 12 gigabytes of VRAM and up, as well as, faster memory bus and all of the details, PCIe generation 4, 16x, all of these details add together to actually make a difference to overall performance. And that's why the 4060 Ti is so disappointing in 2023. All right, guys, so remember to subscribe, smash that like button, and I'll see you guys on the next video.